All right, welcome everybody. I'm going to catch up on what I've done here. I didn't think that this was going to turn out as well as it has, or I would have filmed the entire process. This is going to be an interesting kind of build for me because it's resin on top, just super glued to a red oak burl. I can't really call it a hybrid because I didn't pour it together, but it's going to finish that way. It's going to pose a challenge to me because what I really need to do is wet sand this resin down and polish it up. I won't be able to do that because this red oak burl has a lot of bug traffic in it, and it's real pithy, and I've actually had to use super glue in it right here to hold it together. So, and a little bit here. But what happened, there's a bug in the side of this resin, and I poured it in 2 layers with a bunch of air bubbles because I don't have a pressure pot. Even if I did, I don't think you can pressure a bug. I think it would crush it. So I didn't have enough length on the resin at the base of it to drill it and tap it because I was going to drill into the bug. A spider would have got a drill bit, so that wouldn't have worked. So I just super glued this red oak burl to the bottom of it with copious amounts of the gel super glue, and it squeezed all out, which was great. I just activated it and turned it down on the lathe. So now I have plenty enough room, but now I have this ugly white area inside the blank that we're going to see on the spade, the brad point drill bit too. So it's like a flat at the top of the point, kind of pointing to the spider. So that's not ideal, and I don't really know the best way to remedy it. I think what I could do is just fill this area up where the drill bit passed past the red oak there. I think I could fill it up with epoxy, and it would minimize it, but I still think you'll be able to see it. So I may leave it, I may fill it up with epoxy, I don't know. But at any rate, I'm going to have to dry sand this down because I don't want to introduce water to the red oak burl. I think it'll swell up and get all kinds of crazy. Maybe I could seal the red oak first and then wet sand everything. I guess I could try that. It's just almost too much surface area to use CA glue on for a finish. So it poses a design challenge. Let's get to it. Okay, so a thought occurred to me. I can simply mask this off, mask the resin off from the red oak burl. Put a coat of CA glue on this, just a thin coat. It'll absorb most of it and shouldn't pose a problem, and shouldn't create too much of a ridge at the masking tape. Alright, so here's what it looks like after the 1500 grit sanding. I'm going to take this all the way to 12,000 grit, and I'm not 100% sure that the scratches I'm seeing are the 1500 grits. They may have been from the 80 I used in the beginning. So I went from 80 to 200 to 400, I think it was. So I'll know in a few more passes of the micromesh if I have to start over. Okay, so 1800 grit on the micromesh pads. I can still see some deeper scratches, so I'm going to start over. Okay, looking pretty good. I don't see what I thought I was seeing earlier, and it does look like, though, I'm seeing a transition, a seam from the 2 layers of the resin. But it should be minimal, and I'm going to go ahead and progress on from now and see if I can expose this spider a little bit better. Going to black now. This is after the green pad. This is 2000. No, this is 2400 grit. Kind of the moment of truth now to see what it looks like when it's dry, because when it's wet, it's always going to show up more clear than it actually is. And I can see it's not perfect. Not pleased with it at all. Very slick, but it still maintains a frosted glow, a frosted look. And I think that's because my micromesh pads are getting old, and it's hard to tell when I've gotten all the scratches out from the previous pad. So I could continue working on this, or I could just try some plastic polish and see what happens. But as of now, it looks like I start over. that made a huge difference. I can still see some old sanding lines, but there are so many bubbles in here. It's not worth the effort to start over. It's not something that we'll sell or give away. It's just going to be a Halloween prop, and it's just in such poor quality. I'm going to put a couple more coats of this on it, and I'm going to sand. I may sand this out just slightly, but other than that, I'm not gonna do much to it because this is almost a wrap. It's just we'll get a closer look at it when I'm finished, but let's put a little more plastic polish on it and then go from there. Alright, well here's the end result after sanding and plastic polishing. And I'm not sure if the iPhone's going to pick up the small scratches from the 80 grit that I started with. I probably should have never went down that far, but I had irregularities in the turning. I just kind of rushed through it. So I wish I'd have spent more time fine tuning the actual profile before I went to the 80 grit sandpaper, because they were hard to get out. And my micromesh pads are on their last leg. There's a shot. You can see some of the sanding marks right there. That's 80 grit sandpaper, guys, in resin. And anytime, you know, colored resin is forgiving. Clear resin is going to show every imperfection. This, I think my buddy called this an orb weaver spider. Correct me if we're wrong. Way too many bubbles. This is just one coat of CA glue right here. I'll put some oil on this, but it's not even necessary because it's just a poor result. Yeah, I mean it looks okay and it's clear. The spider's off to one side. It wasn't. We had it in the center, but for some reason the Cosmos pulled it to one side in the cup. There's a visible line of the separation of the two layers of resin we poured, and the air bubbles are off the chart. So anyway, I'm going to pour CA glue in here, switch it around and dump it out. It's going to cost me about $3, but I'm going to try to figure out if I can make this a little bit more translucent right here. It's worth a shot. We're going to find out together. No, it wasn't the result I was hoping for. Let's dump this out and then get the actual bottle stopper screwed back in. Now, of course, doing this, I've glued this bottle stopper in, so keep that in mind. That's not coming out unless I break this off somehow and pick the threads. Well, not everything turns out like we want all the time, and that's okay. It was a learning experience. This is what happens when you pour resin without a pressure pot. It's just full of bubbles, and like I said, the spider was not dehydrated or anything like that. It's just a spider that we found. And you know, I think the pressure pot would have crushed it. I mean, that's what it does, and it would have reduced the air bubbles. You know, this would have been clear and probably had minimal or no air bubbles with a, you know, a 50-pound pressure pot until it was cured. So there is that. This was a failure, you know, but that's okay. Every failure we need to learn something, and I learned a lot from this. So anyway, a lot of bubbles, but it's functional. It's just not the design or the look that we were hoping for. But that's okay, sometimes that happens. I hope you found some of this useful. Thanks for watching. Oh, and I almost forgot. If you want to see me make some more pins, stick around. I have 16 commercial blanks, 17, I have an extra one somewhere, that I'll be using. So acrylic acetate, I think. They're much harder than store-bought poured resin, in my experience. So this is going to be exciting, and I hope to make something with a little bit more wow factor. Maybe. It's just going to be a resin blank.